Story swapping with Lakti. As the wheels came up and big, shiny yellow skis dropped down, the bookmobile glided across the ice. The girls had arrived in the Arctic region of Canada. They were bundled up in parkas, earmuffs, boots, and mittens. Campbell looked out the window. "Look, reindeer!" The bookmobile stopped. A girl carrying a pail ran to greet them. "Hello, Lakti," Grandmother Elf said. "Meet my friends, Jamila, Alejandra, and Campbell." The Brownie girls peeked into Lakti's pail as she named what was inside. Mussels, sea urchins, and 2 kinds of fish, Arctic char and whitefish. The girls stared into the pail, but Lakti's eyes were on the bookmobile. Lakti and her family and friends knew many stories. They were members of the Ungava Inuit, a group of native people from far up in eastern Canada. Ungava means toward the open water. The Inuit know so many stories, we sometimes have trouble remembering all of them, Lakti said. We would love to record them. Maybe we could put them in a bookmobile. I have ways to help you do that, Grandmother Elf said. After all, hearing stories from long ago is so much fun. Those stories are your very own folk tales. Lakti's great aunt was a storyteller. Every week, villagers gathered to hear her tales. The stories she told were passed down to her by older storytellers, and those older storytellers heard them from even older storytellers. Some stories were about things that happened hundreds of years ago. Does she tell stories about sea creatures like the ones in your bucket? Jamila asked. Sometimes, Lakti answered. Before you meet her, do you want to see how we fish when the water in the bay is frozen? Awesome, said Alejandra. Lakti explained that she lived on the shore of the Hudson Bay, which stays frozen all winter. She led them to a spot with a hole in the ice. The hole was the size of a small plate. The air was icy cold. The girls clapped their hands as Lakti dropped her fishing line into the hole and jiggled it to catch the attention of a fish. You have to watch carefully so you don't miss when the fish bites, she said. My friends and I swap stories to pass the time. Do you ever do that? Just then, Lakti felt a tug on her fishing line. She reeled it out of the hole and dropped a wriggling fish into her bucket. Hooray, the girls shouted. Now you try, said Lakti. Time flew by as the girls talked and pulled in 3 more fish. Before they knew it, Lakti's bucket was full. Now, let's go see my great aunt, Lakti said. The girls took turns carrying the bucket as they hurried to Lakti's house on the shore. Grandmother Elf greeted them. How about a hot drink? Some tea, perhaps? Or hot cocoa? Lakti smiled. And some akotak? Campbell repeated the word exactly as Lakti had said it. What's akotak? It's our ice cream, Lakti answered. It's sweet and fluffy with berries. You'll love it. Cups of hot cocoa warmed the girls' hands. As they sipped, Lakti took out all the makings for a kotak. A kotak means mix them together in our Yupik language, she explained. Every family has its own recipe. Ours uses boiled fish and sugar and lots of berries, blueberries, blackberries, and cranberries. The girls mixed everything together. When everyone had their fill of the fluffy treat, Lakti invited them to meet her great aunt Mary. The girls brought Mary a bowl of akotak. They all settled in a half circle around her. Once, when I was about Lakti's age, my great-grandmother handed me a beautiful piece of green stone, she said. It was time for me to learn to carve. Mary talked about the tools and the art of carving, and how each carver sees a shape in the stone. In our village, we can just look at a carving and tell who made it, Lakti added. Each artist has her own style. Lakti and her great-aunt showed the girls small carvings of girls and mothers with children. I want to carve a baby riding in the hood of her mother's parka, she said. That will take time. And patience, said Campbell, just like fishing. Or like anything else you want to do well, said Aunt Mary, even telling stories. Then Lakti remembered. Aunt Mary, Grandmother Elf has new ways for us to keep our stories." Great Aunt Mary smiled. "Everything's in the bookmobile," Grandmother Elf said. "Let's go." Once in the bookmobile, Grandmother Elf pulled out a camera, a video camera, and a laptop. "There are so many ways to tell stories," she said. "You don't always have to write them down. You can take photos, or make sketches, or use a video camera." She handed Lakti some notebooks, the cameras, and the laptop. Sometimes it's good to have stories saved in more than one way. In a notebook, on a video, or in a computer file. Then if one gets lost or damaged, you and your friends will still have another copy of the story. Lakti thanked everyone. Aunt Mary gave each girl a tiny stone carving of a fish as a souvenir of their visit. "I hope we can come back to fish again with you someday," Alejandra said. Lakti and her great aunt smiled. "We hope so too," Lakti said as she waved goodbye. Brownie Elf turned to the girls. "Let's get you home so you can tell stories of your adventures in this wide world of girls." The girls settled into the bookmobile and poof! Before they knew it, they were back in the park in their hometown of Green Falls. They stood in the sunshine in the same clothes they had on before they left. Their parkas were gone. Jamila picked up the jump rope they'd left behind before their adventures. "Let's finish our jump rope song," she said. The girls huddled together and then started singing. "In Jordan we met Shali, and all her cousins too. Her reading got much better, and we saw what girls could do. Chosita showed us Thailand. We tried a brand new dance. We brought new books for children so they'll have a better chance. We met Lakti in the Arctic. She had so many tales to share. She will save her aunt's stories with the tools that we brought there." "That was good," said Jamila. "Let's keep going." "You're good storytellers," Grandmother Elf said. "Meeting girls around the world inspired you." "That's right," Brownie Elf said. "And now Grandmother and I must be going." "Just one more verse, please," Campbell asked. Together the girls sang a final rhyme. "Our special friends from Scotland, a world of girls they've shown. Now we can make things better with great stories of our own." They stopped jumping and turned to say thank you. Brownie Elf and her grandmother smiled. Then poof! They and the bookmobile were gone, just like that. "I can't wait to draw pictures that tell stories of all we did," Alejandra said. "Remember how Chosita danced that old story?" asked Jamila. "I'm going to dance new stories for girls everywhere." "I'll build a bookmobile to hold your stories," Campbell said. The girls laughed. Then, their passports safe in their pockets, they headed home.